Welcome to the recorded webinar on Missouri First Steps Family Assessment Interview and Individualized Family Service Plan, or IFSP Meeting Observation Tool. This webinar is intended to provide instruction to SPO directors or other designated SPO staff on how to administer the Family Assessment Interview and IFSP Meeting Observation Tool. Additionally, the webinar offers service coordinators and providers an overview of each essential practice identified for further understanding on the expected practices. A copy of the tool can be found at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, or DESE, Office of Childhood's Early Intervention website, under the Evidence-Based Practices, or EBP tab, where you also can locate this webinar. Before we begin, DESE staff in the First Steps Early Intervention section would like to thank the following individuals for their feedback and guidance during the development of this tool: SPO directors and providers on the Program Improvement Workgroup, Sherry Franklin, Technical Assistance Specialist, the Early Childhood Technical Assistance ECTA Center, Ann Lucas, Technical Assistance Specialist, the Early Childhood Technical Assistance ECTA Center, and Debbie Shaver, PhD, Evaluation Specialist, IDA Data Center. To begin, it is important to have a basic understanding of what this observation tool will provide to the field of early intervention in Missouri. An observation tool not only identifies core components with very specific observable practices, but it should also serve as a way for feedback to be shared, followed by reflection and follow-up technical assistance and/or training. Thinking about an observation tool in this way lends itself to sustainability of practices within the field. Evidence-based practices in the field of early childhood is the process of pulling together the best available research, knowledge from professionals, and information from children and their caregivers to provide services that are evaluated and proven to achieve positive outcomes for children and families. Practices identified within this observation tool align with several evidence-based sources, including the agreed-upon practices for providing early intervention services in natural environments and the recommended practices developed by the Division for Early Childhood, DEC. As First Steps strives to improve outcomes for children and families, looking closer at the practices and interactions with families within the program provides a direct correlation. It is important to keep in mind the purpose of this tool is to examine practices, discussions, and interactions during a family assessment interview and an IFSP meeting. When observations are conducted by multiple people, inter-rater reliability is critical to ensure consistency and use of the tool, which ultimately leads to more accurate data related to early intervention practices in Missouri. Now let's take a look at the instructions for using the First Steps Family Assessment Interview and IFSP Meeting Observation Tool. The instructions can be found on page 1 of the observation tool, and it begins with an explanation of the purpose of the tool. The First Steps Family Assessment Interview and IFSP Meeting Observation Tool is designed to measure the use of evidence-based practices during a family assessment interview and during an IFSP meeting. The intent of the observation tool is to examine the interactions, discussions, and overall tone of the family assessment interview and an IFSP meeting, not to serve as a script for conversations. The tool can be used by the SPO director or other designated SPO staff to observe service coordinators and provider practices during the family assessment interview and an IFSP meeting to help identify the need for targeted technical assistance and/or additional training. The tool also assists the Regional System Point of Entry, or SPO directors, with the annual needs assessment. The needs assessment identifies the strengths, challenges, and any related training and technical assistance in the region based on observations of service coordinator activities. Observation data is submitted annually to DESE as part of the State Systemic Improvement Plan, or SIP, reported to the U.S. Department of Education Office of Special Education. As you think about the layout of the observation tool, you might envision a funnel, looking at each section from a top-down perspective. The observation tool consists of 5 essential practices. The first essential practice relates to the family assessment interview, in which the concerns, priorities, and resources of the family are identified. The next 4 essential practices relate to IFSP meetings, which include establish and maintain a collaborative and respectful climate, prioritize the family's concerns, determine IFSP outcomes, and prepare the family for next steps. The essential practices are the overarching concepts for the tool, represented at the top of the funnel. Each essential practice identifies 3 or 4 observable components necessary to achieve the essential practice. This is represented in the middle of the funnel. Lastly, each observable component has 3 or 4 key indicators that specify the evidence-based practice with examples and/or prompts in the parentheses, which is represented at the bottom of the funnel. The procedures provided in the instructions describe the intended use of the observation tool. The observation tool is intended to be used in its entirety during a family assessment interview and observation of an initial 6-month or annual IFSP meeting. However, each essential practice may be used and scored independently for follow-up observations. Due to the amount of compliance-driven activities that must take place during a transition IFSP, it is not recommended to use this observation tool at those times. The tool utilizes a 4-point scale for each observable component. The observer selects one rating per component based on the level in which all key indicators are consistently implemented and, when applicable, demonstrated throughout the entire interview and meeting. Utilizing a rating for identified practices allows for a baseline measurement to be established and can be used in a subsequent observation to determine progress made. You will notice the absence of a not applicable option when rating each observable component. Providing NA can often lead to messy scoring and also signal that the observation component is not diverse enough to meet the intended observable audience or discussion type. Therefore, it was decided during the design of the tool that NA would not be an option for the observer. A key feature to this tool is the flexibility it provides to the observer. The essential practice do not have to be observed or scored in the order identified in the tool. Because there is no set script to use for conducting a family assessment interview or an IFSP meeting, and because the tone of these discussions should be family-friendly, the observer may find themselves observing and scoring the practices out of order that are provided in the tool. Of note, if the family does not provide verbal permission to participate in a family assessment interview, Essential Practice 1 is not completed, and the observer reflects the family's decision in the notes section of the Essential Practice 1. Observation of the family assessment interview in Essential Practice 1 is at the discretion of the observer and may depend on the type of family assessment interview conducted, whether it's completed in full or review. A notes section provides a place to write comments about the observation that support the ratings. The First Steps Family Assessment Interview and IFSP Meeting Observation Tool was developed with information from the following sources: the agreed upon practices, which were developed in 2008 by the work group on the principles and practices in natural environments through OSIP. The 7 key principles, looks like, doesn't look like, was developed in 2008 also by the work group on principles and practices in natural environments through OSIP. The recommended practices developed by the Division of Early Childhood and the Reaching Potentials through Recommended Practices Observation Scale for home visiting developed by the Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center. Additionally, the works of L.A. Yang and Robin McWilliam were referenced. Now let's take a closer look at each of the 5 essential practices. Essential practice number 1 is all about the family assessment interview and how the concerns, priorities, and resources of the family are identified. There are 4 observable components under essential practice number 1. Those are: explain the purpose of the family assessment interview and how the information will be used, identify the family's supports and resources, inquire about the family's daily routines and activities, identify the routines that are a priority for the family. Properly identify the family concerns, priorities, and resources during the family assessment interview is an important step to building a comprehensive IFSP that is meaningful to the family. It is the hope that once the concerns, priorities, and resources are identified, they then become the primary focus of the IFSP conversation and make their way to establishing meaningful IFSP outcomes. You will notice throughout all of the essential practices that there is a continual looping back around to the family's concerns and priorities and making that the primary focus of the IFSP conversation. Observable component A takes a close look at whether or not the purpose of the family assessment interview was shared with the parent. This includes explaining how the interview serves as a way to get to know the family better. That is voluntary and not required to receive services. It helps identify the family's concerns, priorities, and resources, as well as how much the family is satisfied with daily routines, and ultimately the family's concern, which helps with the creation of outcomes for a meaningful IFSP. Observable component B focuses on identifying the family's supports and resources. Supports refer to the people and groups the family associates or interacts with, including extended family, friends, childcare, or informal supports outside of the household. Resources refer to the formal programs or services the family utilizes, including social services, early childhood programs, and healthcare. The service coordinator should help the family identify at least one support and one resource. Observable component C looks at how the family daily routines and activities are reviewed. The service coordinator should review a list of daily routines with the family and determine what is working well and not working well. For routines that are going okay or working well, the service coordinator finds out what is making it go well. For routines that are not working well, the service coordinator asks in-depth questions to gain more information about why the routine is troublesome or what the family would like the routine to look like moving forward. Lastly, observable component D looks at how the information gained from the interview is recapped and that the family has a chance to rate their level of satisfaction for each routine. By the end of the conversation, the service coordinator should support the family to identify which routines are a priority for them. The goal is for these priority routines to become a focal point to the IFSP conversation and the development of outcomes to help support the family with those problematic routines. Now let's take a closer look at each of the essential practices related to IFSP meetings. Essential practice number 2 is establish and maintain a collaborative and respectful climate for all IFSP team members, including the family. There are 4 observable components under essential practice number 2. Those are explain the purpose and process of the IFSP meeting with all members, share information with all team members in a clear manner, use active and reflective listening skills, facilitate the IFSP meeting to include the family as an equal team member. As you can see, essential practice number 2 has an emphasis on facilitation skills and overall climate of the meeting. Because of this, you will see specific examples of engaging the family throughout the meeting using active listening skills, reiterating of what the family knows about the child, as well as how to acknowledge and validate the family's perspective. One theme you will notice throughout all essential practices is the continual looping back around to the family's concerns and priorities, making that the primary focus of the IFSP conversation. This tool assures the family assessment was already conducted and concerns, priorities, and resources information, the CPRs, have already been discussed. As mentioned previously, this observation tool allows for flexibility in the order in which observations of specific observable components may occur, as well as scoring. This is especially evident in essential practice number 2. Observable component A includes indicators specific to the beginning of an IFSP meeting, while observable components B through D include indicators requiring demonstration of the indicator throughout the IFSP meeting. Observable components B through D have a strong emphasis on quality interactions, climate, tone, and discussions which occur inclusively with all team members, and most importantly, the family, and making sure they are actively participating in the conversations throughout the meeting. For example, providing opportunities for all team members to participate in the discussion, checking for clarification, not using jargon, all of these would be expectations of the climate throughout the meeting, not just the beginning. That is why the last indicator for components B through D states demonstrate these indicators throughout the IFSP meeting. If those active listening skills and participation of everyone is not represented throughout the entire meeting, the observer might receive a 3 on those particular components instead of a 4. Again, this type of observation reflects how this is not a linear tool. Just because these components are in essential practice number 1 doesn't mean you will rate them first. Essential practice number 3 is prioritize the family's concerns, considering child and family assessment information. There are three observable components under Essential Practice 3. Those are synthesize the information collected regarding the child's present level of development, review and update the concerns shared by the family, identify the family's priorities related to the child and family's needs. The emphasis of Essential Practice number 3 is on review of information gained from the intake meeting, the evaluation or assessment, as well as from the family assessment, and how that review leads to prioritizing the family's concerns. Essential Practice number 3 reflects the importance of coming back to those CPRs and explaining how the IFSP process should reflect those CPRs and how the end result of the meeting should be identification of services. Essential Practice number 3 begins with a look at the child's present levels and the impact those are having on the child's daily routines and activities. Additionally, Essential Practice number 2 begins with a review of all the information related to the child's development and health to ensure the team has all the information needed to move forward. Again, the tool is flexible, so the observer might need to jump around and score items as they occur naturally throughout the course of the discussion. This is very important to remember because we know conversations with families can go so many different ways, depending on many factors. This observation tool should not focus a conversation, but rather reflect the journey of the discussion and interactions that occur amongst all team members throughout the IFSP meeting. In Essential Practice number 3, the importance of the family's CPRs are again reflected in the observable components. B offers time to review both the child and family's concerns, and the team has time to learn of any new concerns that the family might have. Again, when using during an initial IFSP meeting, this tool assumes the family assessment has already taken place. The examples provided in C lend themselves to the observer looking for how the team connects those priorities to how the family will be active participants in the early intervention process and services. When you hear things like, "What goals do you have in mind for your child?" Or, "Are there things you want to do that you cannot do?" Or, "Are there things you are already doing that you need help with?" It sends the message of how important it is to pull the parent into the discussion and helps them see that these are their concerns, and this is how the team will help them with their concerns. The examples within each key indicator of Essential Practice 3 are really getting to how the family feels empowered during the meeting and how the entire team is backing them. Essential Practice number 4 is determine IFSP outcomes for the child and family considering the family's priorities. There are three observable components under Essential Practice number 4. Those are identify and or revise outcomes for the child and family that are functional, identify and or revise strategies and activities to support the identified functional outcomes, identify or revise the criteria for determining progress toward achieving outcomes. Essential Practice number 4 has an emphasis on this discussion of the family's priorities that lead to outcomes. Remember, this observation tool is not about how outcomes are written, but rather those discussions around how outcomes get identified. During the development of the observation tool, particularly with A, it became evident that the examples of how you identify functional outcomes in an IFSP discussion really focused around the definition of functional outcomes. Functional outcomes should 1, connect to priorities, 2, build on what the team knows about the child's present levels, and 3, support participation in naturally occurring routines. You will notice the key indicators provided in A were built around those defining pieces. Observable component B is unique because strategies and activities, although an important piece of an IFSP team discussion, are also an optional piece in the written IFSP document itself. Therefore, the emphasis is around what those strategies and activities discussions typically circle around. That is why the key indicators for B put more emphasis on how the discussion should identify the people, places, and things that will support those functional outcomes. Observable component C reflects on the IFSP team discussion around measurement of criteria for determining progress to achieving the IFSP outcome. Those discussions should be realistic for the family, and again, circle back around to the priorities identified by the family. The last essential practice is number 5, prepare the family for early intervention service and next steps. There are 3 observable components under essential practice number 5. Those are identify services and supports necessary to achieve the identified outcomes, identify next steps and preparation for services to begin or continue, and identify next steps in planning for upcoming IFSP meetings. As the discussion of services and supports to achieve outcomes takes place, a process called the incremental approach to decision-making may be used. The incremental approach to decision-making focuses on the primary provider's and family's capacity to achieve the child and family outcomes. As the IFSP team considers each outcome, the primary provider is asked if he or she has the knowledge and skill set necessary, with the support of regular EIT meetings, to guide the family in achieving the outcome. If the IFSP team determines the primary provider needs assistance from another provider, this individual is called a supporting provider. The incremental decision-making process is also used to determine the need for service for disciplines other than those represented on EITs, also known as ancillary providers. Observable component A is about the discussion of services and supports necessary to achieve the identified outcomes. The key indicators not only allow for how the team identifies what the family's needs are, but also takes into account what they might already have in place. Observable component A also gets into identifying who the primary provider will be and whether or not additional supports will be needed to assist the primary provider. To some degree, the observer would see evidence within the meeting of the incremental approach to decision-making process being used by the team members as part of the decision around how outcomes will be achieved and by whom. Observable components B and C round out essential practice number 4 with ensuring everyone on the team is familiar with the next steps for services and for upcoming IFSP meetings. Those two components provide examples of what the observer might look for within those conversations and making sure everyone is on the same page with moving forward and everyone's responsibilities. The last page of the observation tool are the references for essential practices and each observable component. The reference shows you not only where the information was pulled for each essential practice during the development of the tool, but it can also serve as a point of reference for follow-up or technical assistance that might be needed when challenging practices are identified. For example, if the person being observed scores a 2 under essential practice number 2A, there is information to support further learning in the agreed upon practices number 2, 7 key principles number 4, and within the DEC RP teaming and collaboration checklist. Thank you for your time. Questions regarding information presented in this webinar can be directed to the contact information provided on this slide. This concludes the webinar presentation on the First Steps Family Assessment Interview and IFSP Meeting Observation Tool.